Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to another episode of Life's Encounter on this day, the 13th of May, 2022. My name is Blaine Thomas, filling in for Pastor Prince Harris and Elder Kyle Phillip. Brother Kyle Phillip couldn't be here today. He's not feeling a bit under the weather, so just want to keep him in our prayers. So once again, I want to welcome everyone to another episode of Life's Encounter. We're going to check the feed here and see how much persons are listening and where they're listening from. I can see that we have some listeners from USA, New York. Welcome, welcome. We have persons from USA, Florida. Welcome, welcome. We see another person from New York. We have persons listening from Barbados, Jamaica. I'm seeing Michigan, USA. I'm seeing that name in Guyana, Deramara, Guyana. Yes, welcome to you. I'm seeing Connecticut, USA, Maryland in USA. Seeing more persons from Jamaica, from Barbados. We've seen a listener from Pennsylvania, USA. Welcome. We have one listener listening from St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Also in Texas, USA, New Jersey, Georgia, and Anguilla. I just want to say welcome to all our listeners who are listening on Second Advent Radio. Also, we're streaming live to YouTube on our Second Advent YouTube page and also our Facebook page. So if you're listening on the radio and maybe you're at work and you're at the computer and you want to see the person that is Blaine Thomas, you can just tune in on YouTube and I can see the face. Just was checking YouTube now to see if anyone hears any messages. Not as yet. But as we go through this word today, if you had any questions, any queries, as you help me out as we study the Bible, you can send in your comments to on Facebook and on YouTube on the chat, and we can have a good discussion. All right. So before we go into discussion, let us, approach the throne of grace. Then, most kind of loving Father, as we're about to break the bread of life, please help that whatever that we may study, whatever that we may read, may be something that will help us in our life and be to open the tablets of our minds and our conscience, that when we walk in accordance of you and in accordance of your word. In your name we pray. Amen. All right, welcome once again, and let's dive into the word. Because here on Life's Encounter, what we do, we take each chapter of the Bible and we dissect it so that we can be able to get a better understanding and also see how relevant it is in our life's encounters. Last week, I know Brother Elder Kyle was dealing with chapter. I'm sorry, not Elder Kyle. It was Brother Pastor Prince Harris. Yes, he was dealing with Genesis chapter 36. And basically, he was going through the genealogy of the Bible, and it was a full list of Esau's genealogy. And the purpose of the genealogy in the Bible is just so that we can get an understanding of the bloodline and the ancestors, and also to know that these things are factual. Because most times when we have history, we use history to understand the facts and to get that whole aspect of this is what really happened. So when the Bible usually denotes genealogies like what they did in chapter 36 of Esau, it's just to show how factual is it. So when we trace it back, we can see that this actually was a real story that happened. So today, we're going to be dealing with chapter 37. And let's start by reading let's go to the first four verses. Let's go for the first four verses. So where you are, if you have access to it, if you're driving, keep driving. Don't pull out your Bibles. But if you're at work, you can pull out your Bibles. I know you have your Bibles on your phone, on your computer. Even if you're doing some work, you can pull out your Bible on the lower end of your screen, or just have it up as we go through it together. So we're going to read the first four chapters, and let's go. It says, Now Noah dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger in the land of Canaan. Keep in mind, I'm reading from the King James Version. This is the history of Jacob. Joseph, being 17 years old, was feeding the flock with his brothers, and the lad was with the sons of Bilhah and the sons of Zephi, his father's wife. And Joseph brought a bad report to them, to his father. Now, Israel, and every time in the Bible, as we speak of Israel, we speak of Jacob, because in the chapters before, we would understand that God renamed Jacob Israel. So now Israel loved Joseph more than all of his children because he was a son of his old age. Also, he made him a tunic of many colors. But when his brothers saw that their father loved him more than all of his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peaceable to him. So we see here that Joseph is 17 years old. This begins one of the remarkable life stories in the Bible and all literature, basically. Enoch showed his walk with faith. Noah shows the prevalence of faith. Abraham shows the obedience of faith. Isaac shows the power of faith. Jacob shows the discipline of faith. And along these lines, we could say that Joseph shows the triumphant of faith. Joseph never complained and he never compromised. So, if we go back, it says that he loved and hated. He was loved and hated by his brothers. And then the part that says if we go back in verse 3 there, it says, now Israel loved Joseph more than all of his children. Israel, being Jacob, was father of a troubled family, as we can see, with sons from 4 different mothers. Oh, wow. Imagine he had sons from 4 different mothers. So you could imagine the turmoil in that household because you have favoritism, you have disagreements, you have persons saying, oh, why is it that you give like the mothers will be saying, why you give my son this, but then you don't give her son this, or you pay more attention to her son than you pay more attention to my son. So this caused a lot of dysfunction in the family. And with sons from 4 different mothers, all living and working together, there was much rivalry and competition. Yet Jacob had a clear favorite. And I think that's where he made one of his biggest mistakes is as a parent, showing favoritism is never the right way to go. And you know, we're humans, and if we have more than one children, most likely you would have one that you're more drawn to or more closer to. But physically showing favoritism is never good in terms of children, because the child that is not the favorite is always going to feel left out, is always going to feel like they're not a part of anything. And in the Bible, it says Joseph was a son of his old age. So that basically means that he had Joseph when he was basically older in age. And as the Bible, if we know the story goes on, that he also had Benjamin after. So with all these ideas and dreams about what a perfect family should be, by anyone's measure, Joseph's family had a lot of problems, and we all know that. As a young man, his father tried to trick his grandfather Isaac into giving him the family fortune instead of his older twin brother. So since from then, there's been trickery, there's been dysfunction in the family, and it's just going down in generations. It all fell apart, and Joseph's father, Jacob, had to run for his life when his twin brother vowed to murder him. Jacob went away more than 200 miles on foot. He did not see his father Isaac for more than 20 years. When Isaac was almost dead, there's no record that he ever got to saw his mother again. But Jacob found a place with his mother's relatives, but his uncle cheated him and treated him like a slave. That's when he went and he was working to win the hand of his first wife, the wife that he loved. And because of that, his uncle tricked him into marrying the older sister, and then he worked another 7 years to marry the younger sister. So we're just going through this idea so we can build the foundation of why is it that Jacob's nuclear family with Joseph as his son, why is it that it's so dysfunctional? So we're just going back a bit, a few chapters back to show how it all started. It started with Jacob tricking his father to get the birthright. So, as we can see, the ripple effect, because he tricked his father to get his birthright, his twin brother vowed to kill him. So now, because his twin brother vowed to kill him, he had to run away. When he ran away now, he had to find refuge. So he find refuge by his uncle. His uncle now, also a trickster or someone that doesn't have good morals, tricked him in marrying his two daughters. So now he is married to two women, and the story continues. And between these two women, they had 12 sons and one daughter. There were consistent competition and conflict among all the children and the mothers. And one of the greatest big mess up families still is the fact that God's great plan of ages is going to be shown in Jacob's life. So it can be helpful to remember that Jesus himself came from a difficult family circumstances. So I don't want us to think that because sometimes we come from a dysfunctional family, or we come from a family like what Joseph lived in terms of siblings hating us, siblings want to see us dead, that God don't love us, or that we can't make it as a Christian or have a good spiritual life or even make it in this world. Not because our family, yes, our family is our culture, but our family don't defines us, because Jesus himself, Jesus himself came from not a real dysfunctional family, but a family that is, as we see today, as perfect, not a perfect family. And he still showed us that you can live a life that is so close to God no matter where you come from. Unexpected circumstances, under strange situations. His mother became pregnant while before the wedding. That's the life of Jesus. So, in those times, it's hard for Mary to basically to go to the elders and say, "Well, I conceived by the Holy Spirit." They will obviously believe that she's lying, so they will look on her that she cheated before marrying Joseph. So I'm just building that element of the family that Jesus came from to show that it doesn't matter where you come from, you can still live a life that is close to God. Okay, so let's get back now to Joseph. Now, it says here in the first four chapters you read that Joseph brought a bad report to his father. Basically, he he tell his brothers on his father. Sometimes we young and we call our sibling tattletale because they run to our parents and tell us something that we do. Yeah, so that's Joseph. Joseph ran to his father and told him something bad that the brothers did. Joseph reported a bad behavior on his brothers to his father. This naturally means that he made him even more unpopular and disliked among his brothers. Remember, because coming from different mothers, they already had competition, they already had rivalry, they already had dislike. And now Joseph is becoming a tattletale. So that's just building more frustration and more anger towards him from his brothers. And then to make matters worse, what did Jacob turn around and do? In that first four verses that we read, what did Jacob turn around and do? He went ahead and make a tunic of many colors for Joseph. Jacob's favoritism for Joseph was plain now for everyone to see. He just made his favoritism be seen and known. And not only to the brothers, but he also made his favoritism seen to Joseph. So now Joseph now knows that I am the favorite. So now he's going to be walking like he is the favorite and moving like he is the favorite. And as an outward display of his favor, he gave Joseph that coat of many colors. This signifies a position of favor, a pricely standing, basically like a birthright. It was a dramatic way of saying that he was the son to receive the birthright. And mind you, in these times, the older son, the first son, is the one who always received the birthright. Joseph is the youngest sibling, and he's getting that type of attention, that type of favoritism, that coat of many colors, showing that hey, I am the one that's going to receive the birthright. This is what that angered the brothers even more and fueled their hate for him. And that's why as we read in the last verse of chapter 4 of Genesis, chapter 37, verse 4, we read that they hated him and could not speak peaceable to him. Jacob's favoritism for Joseph was an obvious source of conflict in the family. The brothers naturally hated him because the father favored him, and Joseph also gave a bad report. So as we come to the end of those first 4 verses, what do we hear? Let's recap quickly. Jacob shows that Joseph is his outlined favorite. Joseph gives bad reports to Jacob upon his brothers. So we're seeing 2 stages of foundation of hate that can be built from the brothers to Joseph. All right, let's continue. Let's quickly go to verse 5 to 8, and let's read 5 to 8. It says, "Now Joseph had a dream, and he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. So he said to them, 'Please hear this dream which I have dreamt. There we were, binding sheaves in the field. Then behold, my chef arose and also stood upright. And indeed, your sheaves stood all around and bowed down to my sheaf. And his brothers said to him, Shall you indeed reign over us? Or shall you indeed have dominion over us?' So they hated him even more for his dreams and for his words." It's I don't know if Joseph was naive or if he had a death wish. Because look at this. His father is showing that he's clearly the favorite by giving him the coat. He is running to his father and telling on his brothers that, oh, they're doing this, they're doing that. And no, he has a dream about his brother's sheaves bowing down to his, and he went and tell his brothers about this dream. It's like Joseph was very prideful and wanted to show them that, hey, you know his shoulders are high and I am this, or that he was naive and thought that his brothers didn't hate him. Because I don't understand. These things are happening. There's no way that Joseph didn't see the hate or felt the hate, because they would not be able to hide it because of all that hate they had for him. So I'm sure he knew that they hated him, and then he still went and told them this dream. This is very interesting. Joseph had the dream, he told it to his brothers, and they hated him even more. That's what the Bible said. They hated him even more. So that means they hated him from the start, and now they continue to hate him. At best, Joseph showed a great lack of tact. He's not realizing what's happening around him. Surely he knew how much his brothers hated him, and he went ahead still and told them the dream. The Bible tells us that God may speak through dreams, but it doesn't give us a guidebook for dream interpretation. Most of all, know the Bible to know the voice of God. you should expect that God speak to us in the Bible, and if we were to speak in it, and if he was to speak in a dream, he would be, you would understand it. Joseph pleaded to his brothers, please hear this dream. Joseph dreamed for the brothers in a grain field at harvest. Each was a bunch of wheat stalks, and then he said that the stalks bowed down to his. We seen the hate building here. Let's read verse 9 to 11. Let's read verse 9 to 11. Then he dreamed still another dream and told it to his brothers and said, look, I have dreamed another dream. And this time the sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bowed down to me. So he told it to his father and his brothers. And his father rebuked him and said to him, what is this dream that you have dreamt? Shall your mother and I and your brothers indeed come to bow down to the earth before you? And his brothers envied him, but his father kept the matter in mind. So Joseph here had another dream, and he went and told his brothers again, but he also told his father as well. And you see here that his father rebuked him. His father's like, whoa, Joseph, slow down. It's one way to say your brothers will bow down to you, but it's another thing to say, I will bow down to you. So, because the father's like, whoa, Joseph, you're getting ahead of yourself right now. The father rebuked him. And let me just say this. Joseph is running ahead here and telling people his dreams. Every time he's dreaming, he's running to his brothers' his dream. His brothers hate him. Sometimes in life, as humans, not everyone in our life we must tell our dreams. Not everyone should know what we dreamt about or goals or aspirations we have in life. Because like Joseph's brothers, some persons have hatred for us and only want bad for us. So that's just a little life note there. Don't disclose your dream to everyone. Be tactful, be mindful, and have wisdom in who you discuss your dreams, your goals, and your aspirations to. Because like Joseph's brothers, some persons have hatred for us and want only bad thing for us. If we would say that Joseph was unwise to tell his first dream to his brothers, then it is worse to share the second dream. The second dream was likely to cause even more resentment because it set him not only above his brothers, but also set him above his father and his mother. You see, Joseph had a sort of pride common in the favored and the blessed. He was so focused on how great his dreams were for him that he didn't begin to consider how the dreams would sound in the ears of others. He was so excited. Oh, I got this dream. People bowing down to me. People bowing down to me. But he's not thinking, how is this going to sound when I tell someone that they're going to bow down to me? Think of it, Joseph. How is it going to sound? Then you go to your father and tell your father that one day you bow down to me. In our culture, that is what you call being disrespectful to your parents. At this point, Joseph was a contrast to Jesus in somewhat. Jesus wants us to be as he was on this earth, an others-centered person. Joseph seemed to have fallen short in that area. You see, though Joseph was wrong to tell these dreams, they certainly did come true. And that's a fact. One may receive a wonderful message from God that he does not intend them to publish to others. Joseph showed a lack of wisdom here and perhaps rooted in pride. So sometimes God outlines to us what is going to happen in our life. And he doesn't outline it to us too, so that we would run and tell everyone, this, I'm gonna get this in life. I'm gonna no, no, no. He outlined it to us, not to us and everybody else. So don't let us make the mistake that Joseph made, because Joseph was rooted in pride. The build up of his father giving him the coat, the father physically and blatantly showing that he is the favorite. All this puffed him up. So now that when he get these dreams, he want to run to tell his brother, hey, one day you'll bow down to me. The sun, the moon, and the 11 stars bow down to me. The idea of the stars, the moon, and the sun represents family of Israel. And it is repeated also in Revelations 12:1. When you get some time, you can go and check it. That passage speaks of Jesus coming from the nation of Israel. Okay. Let us go now to verse 12 and 17. Let's read quickly 12 and 17. Then his brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. And Israel said to Joseph, and remember, then we speak of Israel here, we're speaking of Jacob. Let's go again. And Israel said to Joseph, are not your brothers feeding the flock in Shechem? Come, I will send you to them. So he sent him to them. Here I am. Then he said to him, please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks, and bring back word to me. So he sent him out of the valley to Herbert, and he went to Shechem. Now a certain man found him, and there he was, wandering in the field. And the man asked him, saying, what are you seeking? So he said, I am seeking my brothers. Please tell me where they are feeding their flocks. And the man said, they have departed from here, for I heard them say, let us go to Dothan. So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dothan. His brothers went to feed their father's flock in Shechem. Joseph's brothers had to do that hard and uncomfortable work of tending and roaming flock for their fathers. Joseph stayed home and slept in his own bed, except when Jacob sent him to check on his brothers. So we can see here that the brothers are doing hard labor. They're out in the sun all day. And what is Joseph doing? He's home in the coolness of the tent, sleeping. This seems nothing strange about this errand, except that Joseph's brothers was in Shechem, and place where his family was influenced and harmed by worldly influences, as we see in Genesis 34. The father told him, please go and see if it is well with your brothers and well with the flocks. You see here, because Joseph brings back reports to his father about his brothers. That's why Jacob sent him. Rather than waiting for the brothers to come back and ask them what happened or how was the flock, they could have lied to him. But he knew Joseph would tell him the truth of what the brothers are doing. So that is why he sent Joseph. He was using Joseph as a means of like a messenger, because he knew that Joseph would tell on his brothers, basically, and I'm playing. So and what it says that Joseph found them in Dothan. It took some persistence, but Joseph found his brothers in Dothan. It was perhaps a 10 to 15 mile walk, or it was a distance. So much later in Israel history, Dothan was where Elisha saw a gigantic army surrounding him, protecting him even when the Syrian army came to arrest him. That's in 2 Kings 16:13 to 17. So these Shechem and Dothan are areas, places in Israel where further down in the Bible there are stories and things that happen for a particular reason. Okay, so Look at the time now. We're going to take a small break before we get into verse 19 and 20. So stay tuned. When we come back, we'll continue and finish the chapter of Genesis 37. This is Life Encounters, and we're going to take a small break right now.
The South Leeward Conference of Seventh-day Adventists presents The Keys to Happiness.
Yes, welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you for staying locked into Life Encounter. My name is Blaine Thomas, filling in for Pastor Prince Cyrus and Elder Kyle Phillip. We are looking at Genesis chapter 37. We're diving into that chapter. Before we continue, let's look at YouTube and see if we have any comments, any questions. I'm seeing Janice Henry. She's saying, "Good morning from New York City. Love and blessings." Good morning, Miss Henry. Good morning. Good morning. I'm seeing Whitney Benjamin, one of our avid listeners. She's saying, "Good morning, Sister Benjamin." She's locked in from the UK. I want to say good morning. Good morning to you. And I'm seeing also Helene Sanchez saying, "Hi, Blaine, one of my good friends. Good morning. And I hope everything is going with you good this morning." Nice to see the persons listening on YouTube. Remember, if you have any questions, any comments, if you want to join in on the conversation, you can just send your message in the chat on YouTube. You can send us a WhatsApp on our number 786-1015 268-786-1015. You can send us a WhatsApp. You have a question, comments, joining on the conversation. We will be glad if you do so. Okay, so we're continuing. And we're going to look at now chapter 19 to 20. Let's read chapter 19 to 20. Then they said to one another, "Look, this dreamer is coming. Come therefore, let us now kill him and cast him into some pit. And we shall say, some wild beast has devoured him. We shall see what will become of his dreams." This is a very deadly statement being made by Joseph's brothers. As we left up in the verses before, we saw that Jacob sent Joseph to look for his brothers in Shechem, but he met a stranger, and the stranger told him that he saw the brothers went into Dothan. So Now that he's approaching his brothers in Dotham, they see him. They're saying, look, the dreamer is coming. The fact that his brothers refer to him as a dreamer is just more evidence to show us that the dreams that Joseph told his brothers fuel their hate. They have now a name for him called the dreamer, showing resentment and hate towards him. Joseph's brothers mocked him as the dreamer. In a sense, Joseph brought this upon himself by the foolish way he spoke about his God given dreams before his brothers. Again, not everyone we should discuss our dreams too. Some wild beast has devoured him. This is the excuse the brothers thought of in their mind that they would give after they have killed their brother. That they would say that some wild beast had devoured him. Their plan to kill Joseph developed. They were so serious about it that they plot an excuse they would make to their father, knowing well how it would devastate Jacob. And we can see here, because I think in law they call that first degree murder. Because I think manslaughter is when it just happened that you kill someone out of anger, out of jealousy, and it just happened. But first degree murder is when you planned it and you plot it out and you put plans in place to get it done. As we can see, Joseph's brothers here, they're planning to kill their brother, and not only planning, but they're already making excuses of what they would tell persons after they have done this act. We shall see what will become of his dreams. They didn't oppose Joseph's plans, hopes, and dreams for the future. They opposed the dreams that came as a revelation from God. And this is a big mistake the brothers are making. Their thought process of that if they're going against Joseph's dreams. But they have to keep in mind, these was not Joseph's dreams. These was plans that God gave to Joseph. So for them to oppose Joseph's dreams, they are actually opposing God's plans. Dangerous grounds. They wanted to see if they could defeat God's words, God's announced purpose. That is what they're doing. And sometimes we have to be very careful of certain things that we shut down or certain things that we do. Because sometimes in our own humanistic nature, we look upon something and we say, oh, that should not be. And we try to shut it down, or we try to go against it, or we try to bring it to an end. But we have to be careful, because sometimes that thing that we're shutting down is actually God's works and God's plans. And we're actually going against God's works and God's plans. So we have to be very careful. Joseph's life doesn't really tell us anything about fulfillment of dreams. Joseph never dreamt of being a slave. Joseph never dreamt of being falsely accused for rape. Joseph never dreamt of being forgotten in prison. Neither did he dreamt of being the second most powerful man in Egypt. Or he never dreamt of saving the world from Pharaoh. God's dream for Joseph was better and greater than any dream Joseph could have come up with. A focus on our life's dreams can be dangerous because we make the fulfillment of our dream the most important thing. We forget everything else and we're trying our best to fulfill that dream. Because in a lot of chapters ahead, going far back into Genesis, when God told Abraham that he would be the father of many nations, that's necessary. God giving him a dream, a goal, an aspiration to achieve to. And rather than Abraham waiting on God to fulfill that dream, God's purpose, which is when he told Abraham to sleep with her handmaid Hagar, so that because she can't bear children, so that he can get a child from her, so that they can be the father of many nations. But that wasn't God's plan. When sometimes God gives us a dream, or God gives us a vision of what He wants in our life, it's not for us to make it our sole purpose in life and try to achieve it on our own. We must always remember to wait on God. His timing is right. Joseph Lice tells us a lot about how God fulfills his words. The brothers were determined to defeat God's revealed word, but God's words never fail. What God says about Joseph is true and would come to pass, and what God says about Jesus is true and will come to pass. Okay, so let's continue. Verse 21 and 22. But Reuben heard it, and he delivered him out of their hands and said, let us not kill him. And Reuben said to them, shed no blood, but cast him into this pit which is in the wilderness, and do not lay a hand on him, that he might deliver him out of their hands and bring him back to his father. So he says, but Reuben heard it and delivered him out of their hands. We think of all the 10 brothers leaving Benjamin out and wonder how they could be so evil. That's evil on another level, to kill your own family member. There was no one good among the 10. They wanted to kill Joseph first and then throw him into a pit. But Reuben suggested that they throw him in the pit first instead, and he got the brothers to agree to it. There's something wonderful in seeing this from Reuben, because early in Genesis chapter 35, he did a terrible thing. Reuben had sex with one of his father's wives or concubines, Bilhah. Reuben wouldn't be defiled only by the worst thing that he did. So, though he did that act, which we see unlawful, and it's something bad, that didn't really define his life, because as we see here now, he's turning around and doing something good. It says that he might deliver him out of their hands and bring him back to his father. So Reuben's plan was to, after throwing Joseph into the pit, to sneak him away from the brothers, sneak him out of the pit from the brothers knowing, and bring him back to their father. So he had a plan of salvation for Joseph. Reuben could have simply rose up and said, this is wrong. We can't do this. But instead, Reuben wanted to be merciful to Joseph, but he also wanted to please his brothers who hated Joseph. This failure to do the right thing meant that good Reuben wanted to do would not happen. You see, he was on the fence. And in life, we can't be on the fence in decisions, in our spirituality, in anything that we do. He wanted to save Joseph on one hand, but on the other hand, he wanted to be in good favor with his brothers. Because if they were doing something so unlawful, so wrong, being Reuben, being the older brother, you stand up and say, no, we're not going to do this. Stand up for your brother. No, we can't kill Joseph. This is wrong. I'm bringing him back to my father. That's what he should do as the eldest. But he didn't want to do that, and then his brothers would hate him. So he wanted to be in good favor with them. So he said, hey, what? Throw him in the pit, and then let's figure out what we would do. But then he had his undermined plan where he would try to sneak out Joseph and get him back to his father. So he's on the fence trying to please two persons. And it can't happen. You have to be able to stand up and make a decision in your life. You can't be on the fence on two different spectrums. You have to be decisive in what you do. So the story continues. Let's read verse 23 and 25. So it came to pass, when Joseph had come to his brothers, and they stripped Joseph of his tunic, the tunic of many colors that was on him. Then they took him and cast him into the pit, and the pit was empty. There was no water in it, and they sat down to eat a meal. So we see here that they stripped him from his coat. They tore it off of him. It was a cruel pressure. When they was made teared off him, they maybe felt so good inside. They could dislike that they've taken their anger out on this coat because they see the coat as a symbol of Jacob's favoritism. So they're just ripping it apart. They bullied Joseph. They ripped it from him, the sign of his father's favor of many coats. We picture this scene and think of how Jesus was stripped for everything before he was crucified. Because as we move along, we're just contrasting Jesus' story with Joseph's story. So same way as we picture the brothers ripping off the tunic off of Joseph. On the other hand, we have Jesus when they ripped off the clothes off of him before he was crucified. Jesus went up on the cross. Joseph went down in a pit. But each was stripped, disclared cruel, and placed into a place they could not seemingly never be rescued themselves from. Both of them were stripped. Both of them was bullied and beaten and placed in a situation where they couldn't rescue themselves from. We think first of Jesus, but we also think of the righteousness of God that clothes every believer, and how the enemy of our souls wishes us to feel naked, cursed, and helpless. He wishes to tear off God's spirituality off of us. None of that was true for Joseph or Jesus or for the believer today. The Bible says they sat down and ate a meal. After throwing Joseph in the pit, they sat down and ate a meal. The heartless character of the brothers was evident here. They could eat, they could eat food after with Joseph in a nearby pit. They could sat down and enjoy a food before committing murder. Because keep in mind, the brothers do not know the plan that Reuben has of trying to get Joseph out of the pit to the father. So their mindset is to throw him in the pit and afterwards kill him. So in their minds, they're eating, well knowing that after they finish their meal, they're going to kill Joseph. And they're okay with that. They can sit down and eat and have a good meal and be okay with the fact that in the next few minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it be, that they're going to kill their brother. Later in Genesis 42:21, it describes the conviction of sin they ignored at that moment. In that passage, the brother said, "We are truly guilty for concerning our brother, for we saw the anguish of our souls when he pleaded with us, and we would not hear." When Joseph was cast into the pit, he pleaded with his brothers, and they ignored his cries and ate their meal. That's hatred at its best. Let's continue. Let's read the second part, because we stopped like the first segment of verse 25. Let's read the second part of verse 25 and go on to verse 27, because we're running out of time. So we'll see how quickly we can go through it to try and complete the chapter today. Then they lifted their eyes and looked, and there was a company of Ishmaelites coming from Galilee with their camels, bearing spices, balm, and myrrh. And they went they and on their way to carry down to Egypt. So Judah said to his brothers, "What profit is there if we kill our brother and conceal his blood? Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother and our flesh." And his brothers listened. So a company of Ishmaelites were coming towards them. We could call them Arab traders, the family that came from their great uncle Ishmael, the other son of Abraham. And you see here, Judah is telling them what profit they would get from killing Joseph. The only way to describe the brothers cruel and cold. They were heartless to Joseph, to their father, and to themselves, and against God's plan. They decided that if they were going to ruin so many lives, they might as well make some money from it. Help us, Jesus. This came from Judah, who of all the brothers became the ancestor of the Messiah. As the story of Joseph develops, Judah would be the brother most changed in heart and in character. So let's read verse 28 now. The Minite trader passed by, so the brothers pulled Joseph up and lifted him out of the pit and sold him to the Ishmaelites for 20 shekels of silver. And they took Joseph to Egypt. Let us continue read so we can finish the chapter, and then we will discuss it quickly before our time runs out. So verse 29 onwards. Then Reuben returned to the pit, and indeed Joseph was not in the pit. And he tore his clothes, and he returned to his brothers and said, "The lad is no more, and I, where shall I go?" So they took Joseph's tunic, killed a kid of goats, and dipped the blood in the tunic. They sent the tunic of many colors, and they brought it to their father and said, "We found this. Do you know whether it is your son's tunic or not?" He recognized it and said, "It is my son's tunic. A wild beast has devoured him." Without doubt, Joseph is torn to pieces. Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth on his wrists, and mourned for his son many days. And all his sons and all his daughters arose to comfort him, and he refused to be comforted. And he said, "For I shall go down into the grave to my son in mourning." Thus his father wept for him. Now the Mittite had sold him to Egypt to Potiphar, the officer of Pharaoh, a captain of the guard. And that's the end of the chapter. So let's discuss what we just read. We see in verse 28 that the brothers pulled him up and pulled him out to the pit and sold him. Now, when Reuben came back to act out his plan of sneaking Joseph away to bring back to his father, he saw that Joseph was not there, and he tore his clothes, a sign of when you're displeased or you're in disarray, you don't know what to do. He tore his clothes and said, "What shall become of me? What shall I do?" So the brothers came up with a plan now to kill a young goat, and sprinkle the blood on the tunic and bring it to the father. Here, watch this sarcasm. The brothers well know that tunic is Joseph. They brought it to Jacob and said to him, "Do you know whether if it's your son's tunic or not?" They know it was his. And everyone knew this is Joseph's tunic, the tunic of many colors. Why would you say that to your father? Why would you say, "Do you know whether it is your son's tunic or not?" Showing sarcasm, showing a sign of like they're trying to take up their self out of the situation. This shows the cruelty of the sons of Israel will not directly only towards his favored son, but also towards the father who favored him. This was both a heartless way to bring the news and an evil lie. And as we continue, we see Jacob's grief, where he's saying that he would go down in the grave with his son. He tore his clothes, he mourned for weeks, for days, and he wept for his son. And then the chapter ends where Joseph was sold to Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh. So, in many ways, in that life where Joseph experienced being beaten, being hated, and being sold, you can contrast that with Jesus' life, where he was beaten, hated, and also sold. Same way as Joseph's brothers sold him for 20 shekels of silver. Same way Judas traded the life of Christ for silver. So there's a contrasting situation with Joseph and Jesus' life. But as we look at Joseph's life here, and we see how dysfunctional the family is, and how the hate for the brothers had towards him grew, as they saw favoritism, as they saw him being a tattletale on him, and rather than allowing God to enter their lives, instead they let their hate fuel, and they let their hate to grow so much so that they were well willing to kill their brother, their own flesh and blood, because of hatred. My plea today is that two things. One, always remember that not everyone you should share your dream with. And two, there are times that persons may rub you the wrong way, or you may dislike someone's character, how they behave, but do not allow that hate or that dislike to fester, so much so that you reach to the point that you will want to do physical or bodily harm to that person. Be mindful of those 2 points. So I want to thank you today for joining us for another episode of Life's Encounter. It was a pleasure being here with you as we went into this chapter together and to dive into it. Always remember, if you have any questions, you have any comments, you want to join the conversation anyway, you can just leave a comment on Facebook. You can leave a message in the chat, a comment on our YouTube page. You can also WhatsApp us at 786-1015-268, and let us know what you're thinking. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know how you see Joseph's life in this chapter, how you see Joseph's life in this situation. And remember that God loves you, and in everything that we always do, we would always have life encounters. Have a great day, and God bless. Thank you for joining us for Life's Encounter.